Right, we're going to look at rooms. These room separators tag a room. We won't be looking at areas because they're slightly complicated things. And we'll also be looking at this thing here, color schemes. Now, rooms are defined by bounding or boundary elements or room bounding objects. And when you put a wall in, it becomes a room bounding object automatically. So if I click on this wall here and we look at this little option under the walls, room bounding, it's ticked. So that means that if I came to my room creation tool, then I can click in here. You notice that this blue boundary line appears and the crisscross symbol basically shows me that that's where my room is going to go. Similarly in here, even in this bit, because these walls are defining this, even though I'll show you in 3D that the walls don't go all the way up, but that's good enough for the software, and there's an opening forced into that, but the opening's on this wall, which is a bounding element, so it kind of works that out as well. So that's separate from this, etc., and this then, the whole area becomes one thing. Now, what happens if you're in a situation where you haven't got a wall, or the wall is non-bounding? Let's assume that I'm going to keep this wall here, I'm not going to delete it, but if I click on this wall and untick the room bounding, so that means it's no longer bounding this space, so it can't create a room there. The room is going to have to come down to the next sort of bounding object. So I use the room tool, and you notice that the room is now kind of all this space, which is not what I want, but maybe for whatever reason I want to separate out this space from this space. Maybe there's not a wall there, then I can use this object, a room separator. So if I click on that and then I come down to click sort of here and then come to sort of this point, I'm going to get this room separator overlapping a wall business, but that's okay, I can ignore that. And then I can come back to the architecture tab and to the room, and now this becomes a room again, regardless of the fact that this thing is non-bounding. And I'm just going to click on this little option here, highlight boundaries, and that's going to show all the boundaries that we've got in our project except for this one, but it does show that little room separator there. So that's what's doing the dividing up. I'm going to close that. So that is basically how a room is defined, by its bounding element or by a room separator. So let's just click that and find my room separator, delete that, select this wall and turn it back into a bounding object. So now we're good to go. So next thing I'm going to do is pop in some rooms. Okay, I've got a schedule set up already. If I go down to this picture, I've got a room schedule. If I double click on that, there's nothing in there at the moment. There's just a heading for number. And I can add various bits to the schedule under the fields option, and we'll cover that a little bit later. But you will have to put sort of a room name and area thing on one of your sheets. So I can't try and close this down, I just have to go back into another view. So I'll go back to my ground floor plan and use the room tool, and I'll click on each of these spaces to define a room. And the tag is going to be positioned where I click effectively. So if I decide I wanted to click it in the corner, then I can. It's not going to affect the fact that there's a room there. So if we look at these rooms now, we've got room 9, 7, 8, 11, 14, 13, etc. Now the reason that these rooms have come on, I started off at room 9 or room 7, let's say, is because I put them in earlier on, and it's just sequentially going up the room numbers, even though it's not starting at room 1. It doesn't matter, I can go in and change these. This is a label. Okay, so if I click on this, we can see here it's got room tag, medium, name, number with both areas. But you'll notice that there's only one area there. And the reason there's only one area there is because I edited it. Sorry, edit type. Start again. Click on this, edit type, and you'll notice that the imperial area has been unticked. If I check it, and apply it, then we get the square footage. But as I'm a fan of meters, then we'll just use the square meters. So that's how you hide those. If you were working in the States, then you'd want the square meterage or the square footage. Then fair enough. The reason that this doesn't move up to that bit is simply because the way the label's been made. Okay, so if I said OK to that and understand how the label's been made, so let's click on this label and then click on Edit Family, not Edit Type, but Edit Family. Then we can see that this is the label, room, and this is just sample text. So room 101, this is a sample name, this is a sample square meterage, and this is a sample square footage. This is what's making up that label. So if I click on square meterage, for example, then I look at edit label, then I get this dialog box. It all gets a little bit confusing around about this sort of point, but I'm editing the label that's been loaded into the room tag family, and this thing here is the parameter name area, which is that, and I'll click on this, and then to know that it's square meterage, why is it square meterage and not square feet, this one, I'll then click on this one, edit parameters unit format. This little, I mean, you wouldn't even know this existed, but anyway, this is so important, this little icon, that it's then going to say use project settings. But if I didn't use project settings for this one, then I could change these values. Okay, but I'm going to stick with the project settings. So what does this thing mean? Use project settings. I'm going to stick with this for a little bit longer, so try to bear with me, and then we can move on to the fun bits of colouring in stuff. But this is really important. So I'll say OK to that, and I'll say OK to that. I haven't changed anything, and I'll just close this down. No changes to that. Why does it say 33.11 meters squared and not 33.1 or 33 point whatever, or 33 alone? If I go to my Manage tab and I look at this thing, this is the project units, then the area format is in meters squared, and it's rounded to 2 decimal places. That's what's driving that. If I said 1 decimal place, OK, then this would change to 1 decimal place. If I decided I just wanted to go to the nearest square meter, then back to the Manage tab, project units and area, click on that, no decimal places, OK, so there's no decimal places on there now. Alright, so that's a little aside on how these labels are generated, but if I wanted to overwrite any of these settings, then it's not edit type, it is edit label, edit family, and then once we're in there, it's then this edit label business. Okay, so this is a label 1.8 millimeter transparent. If I edit the type on that, I get all the values. I can make the text bigger, smaller. Background is transparent, not opaque. If I wanted to overlay this on a floor plan for the finish and I couldn't see it, then I could change these settings. And I'm sure there's an opaque version of the same thing underneath as well. Okay, so these are all families, and the type settings are the same as any other family. You can adjust them all. If I didn't want to show the square feet, I could just delete that from this label. I'd probably want to duplicate it anyway, but anyway, that's that. The reason this says square feet, by the way, is because I go to edit label, and this is another area, but this one is not using the project settings. This has been overridden, and square footage is being set. Okay, so just so you can understand why that's square feet where the project units are in meters. Right, so suitably confused. We've got rooms in there. I can click on this label and call this room 1 if I wanted. I could call this living room. You know, I can do whatever I want with these sort of labels. Room 2, kitchen, etc., etc., around that. And then to create this color scheme, it depends on sort of what sort of parameters that I want to use. So back to the architecture tab, room and area, color schemes, and then I can create my own versions, but there's already one set for rooms, and we can use the room name option, or if I use the room number you'll see more options, but I'll just show you the two. By room name I've only got kitchen, living room and room, because everything else is just room. So a lot of them, if I said apply that and OK to that, and then I come down to this bit, that's not going to put it in the drawing. I've got to come over to color scheme and then use rooms by room name and then say OK. That then applies the color scheme to the drawing. So it's not too difficult. Now, because I've labeled this, or the color scheme is by room, room name, because this is called room and that's called room and that's called room, these are all the same color. As soon as I start changing these to hall, for example, this becomes a new name. I change this to utility, or cloaks maybe, because this is the entrance to toilets, and I change this to WC. Then because these are now new names, they're no longer the same as other things called room, then they will change color. And if we go back to our color schemes, you can see that as we add to these, are they in use? Yes, 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 yes. If I was to click this plus sign to add another value to that, then I decided to call it conservatory. Well, that's a big word, isn't it? Let's go sun lounge and say OK to that. Now I've got sun lounge in here, but in use, no. Okay, so it's not in use yet, so I'll apply that, OK that. Now I can come to this one and sun lounge, and that goes to this color. And let's go back to color schemes. I want to see that sun lounge is like this. Oh, okay. I've got two, one with capital L and one with lowercase l. So I'll just get this one and delete that. Remove this color scheme entry. Yeah. You can also change the colors. Don't click on this bit. Click on this bit, and then feel free to change your color scheme as you want, but just accept what this software gives you. Otherwise you spend ages trying to work out, oh, I don't want that color, I don't want this color. It's all going to be fine. So that is effectively how you create a color scheme. Now, the only other thing you want to put next to this is your color fill legend. Okay, so you'll find that on the annotate tab, and it's under the color fills. We've got some for rooms and some for pipes and some for ducts. We click on this one, and this then is your by room name legend, because we need to sort that out anyway, and you can click that somewhere and it tells you what these things are. Okay, so if you didn't want to put the names in here, then I think they would show up here, but anyway, leave the names there and leave them up here. Okay, so that's how we put the color thing in. To change this, by the way, edit scheme. So I just double clicked on the by room name legend because I need to call it something else. I also get this little couple of handles here. So if I wanted to make this long, then I can just push that up. Maybe I want it like that. If I double click on this and edit color scheme, then that's where I change this to room color schedule or something like that, and apply that. Okay, and then we're done with that. Okay, in the next little video, I'm going to show you how you can create a schedule that reports the room areas, and that's not using this thing, because this gives you gross internal areas and all the other stuff. So we'll just use a standard schedule for that, which you can then drag into your drawing.